at the end of the day, I'm quite a rational person. So I always try to calm myself down and remind myself, okay, what's in my control and what's not in my control, right? I think the problem with AI is that it moves at the pace that might not allow you to sit tight and assess for too long. I called the owner back and said, I'll turn it around, but might not be pretty, right?
Andreas, I think you're the first doctor that we've had on the podcast. I'm assuming that you're not a doctor in medicine. What are you a doctor in?
That's the most embarrassing question I usually get when I jump on planes, because on my senator card it says Dr. Andreas Koeberl for whatever reason. And they usually ask me, are you a medical doctor? And I say, no, unfortunately not. And they roll their eyes and walk off. So yeah, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor in economics.
Right. So if someone has a heart attack on a plane, you're not the man to go.
I will tell them what it costs.
Okay.
The government to resurrect them, yeah.
The economic theory, yeah, very good. You started off in aerospace engineering. You then moved to Microsoft. We'll talk about that in a second. But how did you get your start in betting and gaming? How did you move to the dark side?
I mean, that was a weird one. We took the owner and founder of Best Gaming Technology, Armin Sagida, to the Microsoft headquarters in Seattle, in Redmond, and we met there. And I simply got poached by this, hardcore guy. That's the only term I can find for him. He was my first mentor and my biggest supporter early on. He tried to poach me 3-4 times. I always said no. And then at one stage, I got so drunk with one of his team members, I say, okay, screw it. I'll quit my job at Microsoft and take 50-60% salary cut and move over to work with this guy. Yeah.
You must have been very inspiring, or it might be the drink, one of the two.
Yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, he's a brilliant guy, right? Yeah, I think one of the sharpest minds that the industry had. I mean, he left the industry now. He's also a PhD in physics and really, really sharp mind. Very extroverted for a scientist, but an amazing entrepreneur, right? And I just saw an opportunity to learn from him, because it was always clear for me that I never wanted to stay in the corporate world. I wanted to do my own thing, and that was an opportunity. Cash doesn't matter too much for me, not because I have so much, but just not the motivational factor. So I said, okay, let's try this dodgy industry. Turned out it is not as dodgy as I thought, right? So once you're in, you see, okay, I mean, there is some dodginess, but like in every industry, but the end of the day, there is also a lot of great people and great businesses. So glad that I made the step.
Yeah. And when within BGT and Playtech, obviously part of the Playtech empire, you then set up HPYBET. Talk me through that. You didn't go to set up HPYBET, or you went to...
No, I actually joined Playtech to run their, let's say, sports enterprise sales thing back then. So it was like the first deal was the Greek State Lottery, OPAP, for example. And then we were just having drinks and we're discussing how can we how can we get the foot into the German and Austrian market, right? Because, I mean, BGT was set up in Vienna in Austria. I had offices in Germany as well. It's basically a home market, right? But there was no business. So it was pretty clear that will not work through B2B sales and selling white label solutions. So we came up with the idea to, you know what, let's ramp up an operator, right? And then we pitched it to Playtech, asked them for a big bag of cash. And they said yes. So they funded it. And then, I just set sail to start with HPYBET. Started with 3 people from 0, and then within 3 years we were north of 20 million in revenues. And unfortunately, then came COVID, and it was quite interesting because I remember in January 2020 we had a small celebration because we were more or less cash break even, right, that month or the month before in December, and I think it was the 13th of Friday, the 13th of March 2021. 2020, when we basically shut down the entire planet, which meant that given the fact that we were a retail operation, all of our beautiful revenues were gone, right? So you are left with a 2 million OPEX run rate and zero revenues. We survived. It was quite an intense turnaround project, to be honest. Not a turnaround project. It was an intense rescue project, right? Luckily, we basically raised some fresh money a month before from Playtech, and we had a bit of a cash balance. And the governments were very helpful, of course, especially in Germany and Austria. I think they compensated 90% of the salaries. So that obviously helped a lot. But still, it brought us a bit into trouble, right? Because as you can imagine, the government's priority was not how quickly can we reopen betting shops.
Sure.
So I knew, okay, we need to do some harsh decisions and to protect the company. And we did. And then end of 2020, we basically handed it over or exited it to SNAI. And then I left and got a call from the main investor of BetGames if I'm free and if I would like to turn around another company that is struggling. And I said, okay, let's take a look. And yeah, that's how I landed in Lithuania, in Vilnius. Yeah.
The rest, as they say, is history. All right, talk me through that story again then. You've gone from 3 employees at HPYBET, you've scaled it to 20 million plus revenues. So you're on the top of the world, and then suddenly the world is turned upside down. As a CEO, how difficult was that to cope with? How easy did you find it to sort of move from hero to not zero? Because it's not your fault, obviously, COVID, but
it doesn't matter whose fault it is, right? I mean, you are accountable, period.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard because, when you build something from scratch, it's your people, right? I mean, I was involved in the recruitment of every single person, partly even like the shop staff, etc. Right? I knew everyone personally. That was obviously an emotional roller coaster. I think at the end of the day, I'm quite a rational person. So I always try to calm myself down and remind myself, okay, what's in my control and what's not in my control, right? I cannot control how quickly we can reopen the shops, right? If the government says we have to be shut down for a year or 2 years, you don't know, right? Back then, I mean, this was like the first days of COVID. Nobody knew. Maybe this is deadly, right? Like the Spanish flu or something. And nobody knew, right? No. And so I was clear I can't control that, but what I can control is my costs, right? Is my partnerships with obviously all our sponsorship partners, football clubs, etc. So back then, I think I made the good move to immediately call all of them and say, look, we have to stop and pause payments, and we have to defer everything, right? We don't want to cancel the contract, so you can choose either you accept this and take a bit of a risk that yeah, we might die, but there is also a good chance that you will get your revenues and your money in a couple of months, or you insist on your payments and we go bankrupt. And luckily, all of them agreed.
Yeah.
And not luckily, but most of our competitors back then were a bit like, let's sit tight and assess. And they did that move a few weeks later and did not get these deals. So that helped a lot in the very early days. So, of course, there was sleepless nights. But I think we handled it really, really well with just precision and execution. Little emotions involved, so we were good at hiding that, right? I mean, I had sleepless nights because I liked the people, right? I hired them, right? They helped me build that company, and I just wanted them to still be part of the company and still, even though if it goes bad, that they are somewhat covered, right? So, but yeah, we saved that. A couple of months later, we reopened, obviously with way lower revenues. We were a completely white operation, so we didn't do any casino and so on, not even virtuals, which was a problem because for retail business that is sports only during COVID, good luck. Yeah. This was really, really heavy. Yeah.
It feels bizarre, doesn't it? Talking about it now, it feels like something from a different era, but it's only 5 years ago. But
it's crazy.
The world has moved on so much. Yeah. And you moved on. So you moved on to BetGames. You said you got a call from the owner. What was BetGames like? What did you find when you arrived?
I mean, look, It was obviously a bit of a culture clash. I mean, first of all, I had to open Google Maps and look up where Vilnius is, right? I mean, I knew it's one of the Baltics, but honestly, I didn't know if it's like the lower one or the upper one. And then I simply hopped on a plane and said, look, I want to take a look and want to spend 2 days with the team, right? Because I knew BetGames vaguely because I looked at them at HPYBET because this was this weird product that is somewhat blending sports betting and casino games. And I was like exploring if this could be a bit of a legal loophole in Germany and Austria back then to get at least that content on, but it wasn't allowed. So I knew them a bit, I knew the product a bit, met the team, took a look at the product, and I think everything looked kind of solid, but it was very clear that we have a management issue there, right? So I called the owner back and said, I'll turn it around, but might not be pretty, right? So are you up for this? Yes or no? And yeah, we agreed. And then in October 2020, I officially started. I remember I had to go for quarantine for 8 days before I was able to enter the office. It was very interesting because all the hotel operation also shut down, right? So you didn't even get breakfast or anything. And then, that was the start with masks and 2 meters of distance, saying, hi, I'm the new guy. And the company is declining in a market that is currently growing 20%. Are you aware that this is an issue, right? Yeah. And then,
one of the first things you had to do was get rid of quite a lot of the management. That must have been, you can't have been particularly popular in the boardroom.
I mean, what we did is we just started a complete review, right? And a strategy review. So I involved everyone. I brought in a consultant who, just to be a bit of the, let's say, the independent guy. There was an ex-McKinsey guy who had his own boutique consultancy, a friend of mine. So he flew over for a couple of days, and we ran a very open and transparent process to identify, okay, where are we? Where is the market? And then map out the gaps, right? Is it the product? Is it the team? Is it what is it, right? And that was going on for like 2 months, 2-3 months. And then by the end of 2020, I made the first changes, starting with the sales team, and then step by step, product team, and also the founding team left then, and since then it's a very different organization.
And did your experiences at HPYBET during COVID, where you had to lay people off, did that help you with your what needed to be done at BetGames?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, I think that the big learning I learned back then was, especially in, let's say, in a moment of crisis, people can swallow the truth, right? I mean, what one advice Armin gave me back then was always shock them with their honesty, right? You're dealing with smart people, you're dealing with engineers, right? As a software company, they anyway know what's going on, right? I mean, they see the numbers, they see what's happening in the world and so on, right? Like what the industry does. So just be open and transparent. That was always my attitude. And I never had issues or dramas in these situations. Most people understood, especially at BetGames. There was a bit of discussions, obviously, with the founding team because it was their people and so on. But at the end of the day, I don't remember any situation where we had like massive drama when you let somebody go for very obvious reasons, right? So just explain it, and that works. Yeah. And HPYBET for sure helped a bit. I think at BetGames it was a bit easier in a way because at HPYBET everybody was like 24/7, still very startup-ish, people working Saturdays, Sundays without complaining, and little salaries, and then you need to tell these hardworking people that sorry, we have to. It's not your fault, but it's probably also not my fault, but it just has to happen. We need to protect the company. At BetGames, the discussions were more performance related, right? And then you can explain things, and that's what I meant with, as long as you're transparent. It might be a bit cold sometimes, but people got it, right? And especially the rest of the organization, in some areas, was quite relieved.
Yeah. Yeah, because they saw it as well, presumably. Very different organisations. HPYBET, you're obviously scaling a startup. BetGames, you're arriving at a company which has got 400 plus employees, long established. What's the difference as a CEO running one and running the other? And do you have a preference if you're your next job, if you like? What would you prefer to do?
I mean, I always joke around and say it's like you're Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? Like you have to wear very different hats in that situation. I mean, those two, let's say, journeys were basically consecutive, right? So the one followed each other. I mean, I came from the corporate world, from Microsoft and the aerospace thing before, and then jumping into entrepreneurship for the first time. Which was quite a very interesting journey, because back then I was like 26 years old or 27 years old, and I had no clue about iGaming, right? I basically came in there, and of course I'm a bit of a hobby punter myself, as we all are, but I had no clue about the rest, right? So that was quite interesting, but I saw the market opportunity, and I saw that like everything that is on the market is just outdated rubbish. I mean, no offense to my former competitors, but this is like, especially Germany was a massive banana republic in that sense. So we had a bit of let's say a technology and marketing approach to say, okay, it's not about the knowledge of the industry, because the product is very straightforward and simple. And basically anyway, there is a very tight framework from the regulator. So you know what you can do and can't do. So that was very interesting. BetGames, I mean, look, this was then, when I joined, it was 180 people. Now it's close, with the new studio operation, it's close to 500. This is obviously a different beast, right? The one is, everybody is like, let's do this, right? And you get punched in your face 5 times a day, and then you have one little win that you celebrate, and then that keeps you going, right? Nobody cares about money, nobody cares about time and hours and so on. And then you move back into a more corporate environment where you have to do a tough turnaround and then bring that company back to growth. And people, have processes, and it's like extra hours, and oh my God, I have to do two hours of overtime every week now, and I'm burning out and so on and so forth. I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's very different worlds. What would I prefer? I mean, I love to build things. So the startup world is definitely something I enjoy a lot. So if I have the choice, I would always go into something early stage or run my own businesses. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And speaking of startups and speaking of building your own thing, you've now just over a year in with Autonomous Minds. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read you what it says on your LinkedIn profile. It says AI data layers and agentic Gen BI to trigger actions backed by data. Now, I'm the first to admit I'm more of a Jonas Gutenberg than a Mark Zuckerberg. So explain that to me as a layman. What does that mean, and what does Autonomous Minds do?
I mean, what Autonomous Minds does is we basically built a product called Milo, right? So it's a data layer that basically understands what's going on in your organization in real time, explains you why certain things moved, right? And then based on that, why triggers the right action. So you can think about it like, at the moment we sell it as an AI data analyst, right? But it's actually more like an AI COO, right? Because that's what the CEO does. You understand what's operationally going on in your business, and then you pull your strings and execute something, right? So that's what we currently do. That works really well. The vision of that is clearly to go towards decision making and decision platforms, because especially in the analytics and BI space, I think that will vanish because of AI. It will just merge with operations. And at the end of the day, when you think about what is analytics, it should actually help you to prepare decisions, right? How it's used in most companies is like you have a team of very technical people, analysts and data engineers and so on and so forth, that build nice charts for you in tools that nobody can use, like Power BI or Tableau or so on, right? Very clunky products. And it takes you like 10 days to get a simple answer to something, right? I mean, I had a call with a customer last week, and he said, it takes me 4 days to understand how we're doing versus budget. And I said, what the fuck, right? It's like, but that's everywhere. So there was a clear pain point. So what we are saying is, okay, let's start with unscrewing that, and then down the line, 12, 18 months down the line, we just want to take these decisions for you, right? So we want to move away from helping you get answers, what we do now, right? You ask a question, you get an answer, to basically taking operational decisions for you.
Yeah. You mentioned the two letters there that are on everyone's lips, A and I. Even my elderly father talks about AI all the time. Are you an AI evangelist, would you say?
Definitely, yes, of course. I mean, I put so much cash into that business that I have to be, otherwise it wouldn't work. I mean, look, there is AI like the social media, LinkedIn expert AI, and there is AI, the deep tech subdiscipline of machine learning that requires you to understand linear algebra and calculus and probabilities and statistics, right? This is two very different worlds. We're somewhere in the middle, probably. But I'm definitely a hardcore evangelist. Yeah, I'm a strong believer.
In terms of our industry, how are we doing with AI, and what could we be doing better?
I mean, I think iGaming is always a bit of a second, third wave rider, if this is the correct term, right? I think the problem with AI is that it moves at a pace that might not allow you to sit tight and assess for too long, right? It's definitely overhyped. There is definitely a bubble. I don't believe it will burst, but at some point it will get smaller, and there will be a lot of value will be wiped out in the probably next year with a lot of startups that will go bankrupt and vanish. But it's here to stay, right? Too much value is already created in the development space, in the creative space, right? In the writing space. I mean, you run an agency, so you know how these tools can help you as a sparring partner, not taking away your job, but as a good sparring partner, right? So there's a lot of value created. I think the problem with the industry is that we're slow. We are always a bit like, okay, how can we use AI to be maybe cheaper or a bit quicker? I think the problem I see when I talk to people is we're not brave enough to answer the big questions, right? Like the disruptive question: how can we imagine a world without operators? How can we imagine a world without game studios, right? Is AI the tool for such a world that can help us deliver it, right? I think these brave questions are not asked. And when you look at what's going on in gaming, for example, not iGaming, gaming, I mean, like the big US VCs like Andreessen Horowitz, like A16Z, right? They have a speedrun program, and that started by just funding 60, or I think 60 per cohort, 120 gaming companies per year, right? That were mainly concerned about AI and using AI in the gaming space. So, and when you look at what's going on in the US as well now, right, with iGaming becoming now a bit more mainstream, mainly through the Trump administration and prediction market stuff, right? His family is very much engaged in that whole thing.
I see.
So it helps the whole topic to become a bit more mainstream, right? And that also opens up a lot of new, let's say, investment opportunities, because like the big, as I said, like even the big VC funds that always blacklisted iGaming are now step-by-step co-investing, right? I mean, there's this company called Covered that basically is now funded by A16Z and YOLO, right? I mean, the first time that an iGaming fund probably invests with the main fund of one of the large US VCs. So long story short, I think the mistake the industry makes is not asking these brave questions. How can we disrupt? And waiting too long, and too long means that we might see some disruption coming through the US, from outside the industry, from the gaming space, right? That might that might be a bitter lesson for some companies in the industry. Yeah.
You talk about the industry being a second or a third wave rider, as opposed to a first wave. So we're probably an adopter rather than a kind of innovator as such. Is one of the challenges also in the industry that we are not necessarily attracting the brightest minds, because these bright minds are the ones that are leading the charge with AI?
I always get in trouble when I say that, but I think when you come from outside the industry like I did, one of the big, I wouldn't say, shocking moments for me was the lack of talent, or basically talent density being not that high in this industry, which doesn't mean there are not amazing people. There's a lot of very amazing people in this industry, right? But it's just not enough of them. I mean, when you come from Microsoft, where everyone is like a 50x developer and like a 10x seller. Remember when I became a manager at Microsoft, and I had to hire my first role, and I remember this was like a first year or something when we put out the job posting, and then by Monday morning we had like 400 something applicants, and like 50 that were absolutely superstars, right? And you could choose, and then you arrive in the industry, right? And then you try to find, let's say, the development superstars. When you compete with, for example, in Lithuania for BetGames, I mean, Vilnius is an absolute fintech hub, right? There's a lot of US VC-backed companies. You had Uber there with a development center. You have Oracle there, right? You have Western Union there with 2,000 people, etc. So you have all these companies that compete with you for the tech talent, especially, right? So that's very hard if you have an offer from a company like BetGames, right? And then you have an offer from whatever, Oracle, right? And even if you are willing to match, right, the compensation, it's very hard to convince people to choose the gambling company.
If I wasn't working for a PR agency and I was working for a game studio, and I knew that I needed to get involved with AI, but I didn't know where to start, what would your advice be to me?
I would say when you're a game studio, so I mean, what we at BetGames do at the moment, we have a small AI team, the small incubation team that basically explores these questions, right? They say, okay, we have a nice portfolio, we have an established brands, right? We have like 2,500 brands worldwide that we serve with our games. But what's next, right? Like, what is the big thing? For us, I mean, I cannot tell you too much, but obviously we are now exploring a prototype that goes towards the first example that I just mentioned, right? How can we become a platform that we will still produce games, but because I believe in the power of shared creativity, right? I don't think that operators wipe coding their games will be very successful in the long run, because you just need also, producing a game means you need creativity, right? And you don't have all the creativity in-house usually. So that's why there are so many game studios. But that's something we explore. So I would suggest, go and understand what the market would like to see in terms of disruption, right? Like, again, how can you get rid of just producing slots, right? Like, what's the point of producing more and more reskins, right? And even if you think this is valuable in the long run, well, automate it, right? If you have a mechanic that works, wipe code the skins, right? For example, could be a starting point. I think we will see more and more of these wipe coding tools for slots, for example, because that's more or less straightforward. AI is really bad with math, so it's very hard to produce game engines with AI at the moment. Very hard. So this is a technical problem, an engineering problem that still needs to be solved. But that's, for example, would be a breakthrough. So the first company that solves the problem of how can I produce reliable, testable game engines, it will probably be the next billion-dollar company. Yeah. Or will get acquired by Evolution within 4 weeks, right? Like this is...
So that's the wave to be on, not second or third, but the first wave to be on.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, it's going to happen. It's still very hard to do. I mean, there's a reason why it doesn't exist yet. I mean, I saw some announcements of a few companies going in that direction, but it just doesn't work yet, right? It just doesn't work. It's not strong. And the issue is not the front end part. The issue is the game engine part is very hard.
Okay. So that's the industry. Outside of the industry, I have a daughter who's about to go to university next year. How different will the world look in 3 years' time when she graduates because of AI? And this is an obvious question or an obvious leading answer, but I presume the world will still need human intelligence in order to implement that AI. Are you confident about the future?
I'm very optimistic about the future. I think in 3 years, there will be not too much of change, right? Because one thing that is also a realization already is that the current, let's say, large language models, which is the majority of generative AI that we're talking about is based on these LLMs, they are not intelligent, right? Because they cannot plan, they cannot, and the scientific term is they cannot define an objective function. So one main aspect of intelligence is that humans can define and derive their own objective functions, right? You want to be home at 6 p.m. This is your objective today, to have dinner with your kids, right? And AI cannot do that, right? And with the current architecture that we have, it can't be done. It's always induced by humans, right? So an AI will, for the next couple of years, until we have a significant new architecture, will always be a companion. Some things can be automated, but most of these things can be automated now as well already, right? Also in a way cheaper way. So you wouldn't believe how many discussions the Autonomous Minds team has with customers that want to automate something where we say, yeah, but our solution costs you 50 times more than a simple cron job would do, right? So long story short, I would not be concerned what happens in 3 years. In 10 years, probably, I think 5 to 10 years, we will see some bigger disruptions. But at the moment, I think also the layoffs you hear and so on. I think, look, somebody was saying, oh my God, AI is now killing 10,000 jobs or 7,000 jobs at Microsoft and so on. And I tell you, look, I was at Microsoft in 2013. Every 2 years, we fired 7,000 to 10,000 people, right? And it was always like some sort of excuse for this, right? And now the excuse is AI. It will kill some jobs. It does already. I mean, Autonomous Minds killed jobs. You know, it's not that we're proud of this.
That's not the PR slogan, right?
It's not a PR slogan, but of course it does, right? But it's not that it will make human intelligence obsolete, right? I think the big worry I would have is that it will broaden the gap, right, in society between like the really, really smart people that use AI and people who use AI just because they're lazy, right? I mean, it's not very polite to say that, but you can imagine, if you think about it for a minute, how this gap will widen, right? I mean, imagine a smart person who is willing to work hard and on top uses AI, right? Versus a person who says, okay, I use AI to sleep 12 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
That will probably become an issue for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And when we did a bit of preparation for this podcast, you told me you were a workaholic. What do you do outside of work? You can't work 24 hours a day, or do you?
I mean, I think of work a lot, right? When I'm not working. No, look, I'm in the lucky situation that I would say the majority of the work I do not perceive as work, right? So I work 7 days a week. And I would say four out of these 7 days give me what I call mental energy, right? So even if it's a 16-hour day, you know, best feeling is you ticked off a lot of things, and then you get home and you're physically exhausted, but you still feel good, right? So I do a lot of sports. Like I get up really, really early, like 5:30. I hit the gym 6 times a week, play a bit of tennis, but that's more or less it, right? I mean, you have engaged in 2 companies now, right? One is a cowboy style startup, early stage, and the other one is like BetGames, right? With like close to 500 people. That is a huge time consumer.
You don't worry about burnout. We live in an age where CEOs now talk about, you know, the time that they spend, the quality time with their family, the time outside of work, the need to decompress, the need to rest more, etc. You don't feel that you're heading on the wrong road?
It might be an unpopular answer, but I don't believe too much in burnout from hard work. I knew a few cases, and I can tell you all of them without making anything up here. they have not worked hard, like in terms of many hours. I had a friend of mine who burned out on a 30-hour job. Right, is usually coming from like the emotional stress that you have that can be induced by work, of course, 100%. Right, take things personal, or you punch above your league all the time, and so on. We have some cases. We had some cases in BetGames recently, right? But that was less by working 100 hours a week. It was more like the emotional stress. So I'm not concerned about burnout. I think the lucky position I'm in is that I have a partner who is also a workaholic. So she works 6 days a week as well. We don't have kids yet, right? So I don't get pressure from home. Be home for dinner with the little ones, right? It sounds weird, but that helps. I mean, if you think about it, how much emotional pressure that gives you when you are in a busy occupation, right? I don't have this, so it doesn't really matter if I'm home at 8 p.m. or midnight, right? So that's why I'm also a very relaxed person. I just sit 4 hours longer if it has to be, right? And yeah.
We will revisit your answer in 3 years' time.
Yes,
so it's the same one. So,
please do so, yeah.
But I do know that you support Liverpool Football Club, and that's one of your passions apart from work. But
yes.
Not having the easiest of seasons. Sorry to bring that up. Hugh, the cameraman, is also a Manchester United fan, so you're in bad company.
We're done here.
But why Liverpool, and what are your sort of earliest memories of supporting Liverpool?
Liverpool, I became a Liverpool fan, I think, 15 years ago. I just went to Anfield back then, and I just made click, right? I also love their story, right? From an almost bankrupt club to, of course, they have a huge investor behind now with Fenway and so on. But I think what they have achieved over the last decade, like absolute turnaround, as we would say in the business world, is absolutely fantastic. It just makes click, right? Why do you support the club? It's sympathy, right? I think, especially the era of Jurgen Klopp, of course, was where I became a hardcore fan. I mean, my office in Vilnius is packed with Liverpool stuff, and I have like Lego stadiums everywhere and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
You might already have answered this, but we always finish the podcast with 3 questions. The first of which is, if I was to put you on the spot, who's your favorite musician or band of all time?
Well, band is the pre-2009 U2. I'm a big fan. I was like 15 concerts around the world. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And if you were to have your last meal on Earth, what would you choose to eat? Are you a foodie?
Yeah, big time actually. That's one of my pleasures outside work as well. But I'm very old school here. It would probably be some sort of dead cow and a medium. That's it.
Yep, fair enough. Nice glass of wine to wash it down. Yeah, fair enough. Can't go wrong with that, can you?
Sure.
And last but not least, if you had one piece of advice for the next generation of iGaming executives, what would that be?
I would say, I mean, I'm always half joking that the only place where you find more hypocrisy than in iGaming is in Hollywood itself, and they're paid for it, right? I would say always be coachable, but only accept advice from people who have done it recently. There is so much noise in this industry, and it's quite funny when everybody talks about innovation, but I'm not sure if we've seen some innovation in the last 10 years, right? Maybe the last thing in content or in game content was maybe Crash Games, if you call it an innovation, right? But there is not too much. So be coachable, right? Humble and coachable, but choose your advisors wisely, right? Don't listen to the loudest voices. So also learned this the hard way sometimes. But yeah, this is probably would be one of my biggest advice for young people specifically that are looking for mentors and looking for advisors. Just make sure that you talk to people who did it, and it doesn't matter if they were successful or unsuccessful, right? Sometimes if they were not successful, they might be the best advisors, right? Because you learn more from failure than from success. Yeah.
As honest lot as finding out now. This is. Andreas, thank you very much. Appreciate your honesty and your openness. And best of luck with both BetGames and Autonomous Minds.
Thank you very much.